This is the Tabernacle Podcast with Adam Sharp, return guest Tom Kaleita, and me, John Vermillion. What's up, guys?
What's up, man?
Hey, good to be here.
I'll tell you what's up. I mean, I asked you what's up, and you just answer with a what's up. You know that's the most annoying thing you can ever do to a what's upper. I asked you what's up.
So should I do to you what the students do to me almost every time?
Give it to me.
The ceiling.
Yes, that's dumb.
I know.
What I hold in my hand right here is a Trace Cake chocolate peanut butter cookie. If you are on podcast 163, this one is 164, Change Life Story with Tom Kaleita. We did part one of Tom's story on 163. So if you haven't listened to 163, you're going to want to get that because it's such a good story, and we really appreciate you being here. But it is brought to us by Trace Cakes. Tracy Kaleita is Tom's better half, and she has blessed us again with peanut butter cookies. This one is the mint chocolate cookie. And then last time there was an Oreo cookie, and I had one of each. I took them home. I didn't get any of them. So I have one of these squirreled away in my office. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Our executive producer, Matt Hughes, is one of these actually spoken for you?
One of those is on loan.
One of those, yeah. One of those has to leave with Matt. And yeah. So, Adam.
Yes.
We want to push Trace Cakes.
Yes.
If I wanted to take a class on confections, or if I wanted to order some for a party, birthday, special occasion, or just a Tuesday night, can you give us a little bit about Trace? Like, where do we go?
Yes. You can go to tracecakes.com.
TRACE?
Yes.
TRACE, tracecakes.com.
Common spelling. Yep.
You can also find them on Facebook too, right?
Yeah. She's got a presence there.
I like that we get to I don't know, give her some credit.
Yeah.
Because we've actually been using Trace Cakes for a while.
Forever, since the beginning.
Yeah.
Since
like
the
my
beginning.
wife and I, anniversary stuff. It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's
and
incredible.
Then there's the occasional treats that just show up at the tab.
Yeah.
But tell us about tracecakes.com.
Her mission
Yes, give it to us.
is to provide custom confections to make your special celebrations a bit sweeter.
Yeah.
And it works.
It works. Yes.
Been there, done it.
That's proof. That's
You
fact.
can go on and take classes on the website at tracecakes.com. You can find classes that she's giving. Some people I know may or may not be doing these soon.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Who's taking a class?
We can't say yet. It's going to be a surprise for
Can I get on that
chef
class?
Trace. Do we call her chef?
Yeah,
Or like
Baker?
baking artist?
I'd Baker, I guess.
Baker?
Yeah.
All right.
Just don't call her honey.
Yeah. But you can go there and get
Unless-
quotes. Yeah. You can get all the stuff right at
Tracy,
tracecakes.com.
we love you. We love you so much. Not just for your ability here. She plays bass.
Mhm.
She's a wife. She's a mother. Used to be a teacher. Well, she's still a teacher. Now she's teaching baked goods.
Well, I think she's still helping teach too, right?
Yeah.
At the schools.
Yeah, she does. She substitute teaches. Right now she's, long-term subbing for half a day, so she's got a full plate right now, that's for sure. One thing that I think is funny is that, back when I was a player and stuff like that, everybody wanted my attention. Now it's like, hey, Tom, you're
Tom
married
who?
to Tracy, right?
Tom who?
Which is great. I love the fact that it's that way.
Is it awkward that sometimes I call her Trace Cakes?
No, actually, you're not the only person. So
Okay, because I don't mean that.
there are others.
Just want to say,
Yeah.
you're a large man. I'm a lover, not a fighter.
No, yeah,
We love you too as well, Tom.
Yeah, well,
And
thank
so,
you. I appreciate that.
So we want to jump into the part two. And if you're taking a moment, pause it and go to tracecakes.com, then unpause and come back to the podcast. We covered Tom's story from childhood, moving away to Mount Pleasant, athletics, becoming your identity, finding a ton of success, and then particularly in football. The first full ride scholarship out of Kingsley, Tom Kaleita, goes to Eastern Michigan University, gets some success during preseason camp. He gets the word cancer thrown at him. Then there's the ending of his freshman year as far as playing goes. The tumor is benign. The first time you ever remember really praying beyond just kind of going through the motions, or maybe you prayed before, but that was a first real connection. And hearing, I got this, or sensing a peace that came from God.
Yeah.
And then just the pursuit. We went to Lions camp. We went to NFL Europe. We went back to Lions camp, arena football. We're living in Tampa, church again, a part of your life. Then the brutal and traumatic loss of your mother.
Yeah.
Which is where we kind of took a break. And now we're jumping into part 2. And I don't want to take you right back to that horrible, horrible place.
Yeah.
But was that what precipitated bringing you back to Kingsley, or were some other factors involved?
I do think it was time. I mean, we had, all our family was up here, and we had been away for 8 years at that point. I think being closer to family was going to be a big deal because I mean we had established ourselves in Florida. We had a life in Florida. We had our Florida family and the Rileys. They were awesome. I mean they were an inspiration for sure. They were the first time that I think I really saw what it means to serve. Is by their example. I mean, they were so heavily involved in the church, and kind of held our hand and grabbed it and pulled us in a little bit. So they were a big part of being an example for us on what it means to serve, and I'm forever grateful to those that family, and I still consider them family for that reason. So they were a big part of that. That was Tracy's first time being a part of a praise band was
Really?
At that church. So she was slapping the bass. St. James Methodist Church in St. Petersburg.
There's just some slapping the bass. St. James Methodist, like you do.
Yeah. Believe it or not, I was actually. Well, I'm going to say this loosely, but I actually ran the soundboard.
Whoa!
Which
Matthew, did you hear that?
Really just means that I stood there after after Scott, who was the head guy. He set everything up, and he's just like, if anything needs to be adjusted, you can adjust a lever.
Yeah,
that's all Matt does.
Add him to the team. Add him to the team, Matt. Sign him up.
So I really don't have any background in that, and I have a terrible ear for music too. I could say, well, that sounded pretty good, but I don't know what anything means. And
same here.
Tracy might provide some insight into like, oh, they had the bass too low, obviously, or whatever. I'm like, I don't know.
You look good.
Yeah. But yeah, so that was a major time of what it meant for us to be, to start serving. And, they brought us in. I think I mentioned it, we were kind of led the youth program and we did a number of different things. But I think it also was a time where we also found out what it means to be a community too, because when we were there, now we've got two children, Landon and Natalie, but Tracy's been pregnant 4 times. So when we had first decided that we were ready to start a family, she got pregnant, but unfortunately, I don't remember if it was a month or 2 months into it. There was in one of the checkups, they just said, it doesn't look like this is going to happen. Things didn't happen, and obviously for her, that's devastating. I was definitely affected by it, but not as severely as her. Right. And this is a major part of her story, and I don't want to take away from that. But for me, it was very difficult because obviously she was hurting, and there was very little that I could do about that.
Yeah,
I didn't have any way to help her other than to be as supportive as I can as her husband.
So it's that feeling of helplessness,
exactly,
that you even talked about in the last podcast.
And I don't do well with that feeling of helplessness. Probably like all men, no man wants to feel helpless in their own life. They would, we all want to control. We want to have be the rock that the house is built on.
I'm going to go lift more.
Yeah.
I'm going to work more. I'm going to work harder and
that's
stronger.
Right. Yeah. And so that was a difficult time too, was just going through that and seeing the pain that she was in and not being able to do much about it because she was much more connected, obviously, at that point. So, and it happened twice. It happened before Landon, and then it happened in between Landon and Natalie. Mm-hmm. So they're 3 years apart. We had planned on 1 or 2 years apart is really what the plan was. And obviously that wasn't in God's plan. So, but that, again, community, because, the Rileys and the church and everybody rallied around us in those hard times. And so it was really a blessing to have that kind of support with people that aren't your immediate family, and so that was another kind of awakening, I guess you could say, where God showed me something, about what it means to be a part of His kingdom.
Wow. So this is all happening in Tampa at St. James United Methodist Church.
Right.
You had mentioned the last time the loss of your mother, that there was a moment of real, genuine anger.
Yeah.
And which is legitimate. And, I think we've said before in sermons, I know we've said on this podcast, is being angry with, God can take it. But where did it go with you? Like, because that's traumatizing.
Yeah.
Even if it's, I don't want to call it secondhand trauma, because, you two are one flesh. You both lost a child. Obviously, it's felt more by Tracy, by the wife, but there's some serious loss. There's a lot of wins, but there's a lot of losses.
Yeah.
Even going back to on a much more surface level, but the disappointment with the Lions, not once but twice.
Yeah.
The second time you're hearing from a security guard, and then you're moving on to bigger things.
Yeah.
Where the loss of your mother, where it's a nice little visit, and then we have to decide, to keep her on the machine or not. This is brutal.
Yeah.
So are you processing those things? Are you burying those things? Or where are those at in your relationship with God?
Well, I think I really had to bury it, because at this time, you got to remember that Tracy was actually 8 months now. Yeah, about 8 months pregnant with Natalie.
Okay.
And so, like, I'm mad and I'm angry. And a big part of that is the realization that Natalie's never going to meet her grandma. And that was difficult. And I was pretty upset about that. I was very angry that was taken. But I've got to be there for Tracy at this point. I don't have obviously there's a grieving process. I brought Landon back up here for the funeral. Tracy couldn't come. And obviously to be here with, my side of the family and kind of go through the funeral process and everything like that, be there for my dad, who's now alone, with my sister. So like that happened, in a flash, as it does, for people that go through that, loss like that, it just seems to fly by. But now it's like, okay, refocus. And so I think that anger was there, I was there for Tracy, but at the same time, there's a little bit of resentment going on behind the scenes. I'm going to wear a mask, to be excited about this, this amazing thing that's about to happen. This blessing that God is going to give, but at the same time, to not be able to appreciate that gift as much as I should.
Right. It's a month later she's born.
Yeah. 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 So everything just happened, so fast, because my mom passed away on July 5th and Natalie was born August 7th. So
wow,
that fast.
Yeah. So that's just to kind of give you some reference what that time looked like.
When you talk about being angry, were you angry with God? Were you angry with the situation? Did you know where to put your anger? And I asked that because I remember in my life being in that point of just being angry. And I remember talking to you actually, probably one of our overtimes, saying I'm angry, and you asked me at who? And I realized in the moment I didn't really I was angry with God, but I had not recognized it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
articulated.
I was just angry.
Yeah.
And then realized later I was angry with God and with the whole situation. But was that, like, when you're burying this, is that, are you recognizing, or were you ever angry with God? Like, where was that anger being put?
I think there was some anger at God. Just the way the circumstances were, how Mom passed, how quickly she did. I don't know. It's hard to really process all that, but just knowing what the near future is, and that opportunity gone, like, that wasn't fair.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I felt like this isn't fair. Like, Natalie, who we didn't know yet, but Natalie should know her grandmother,
right?
Or
her grandmother should be able to know her grandchildren.
Sure.
She like your mother missed out on that.
Exactly. So I guess there was, I would say that's probably the main area of the focus of my anger was at God, because I guess I didn't know where else to put it. But God can do all things. Why did He let this happen?
Right.
So
next in the how did you then get how long was it before you guys took the decision to come back to Kingsley? Or to Michigan?
Yeah. So I think it didn't take us very long. And I think we were kind of starting to head that direction before all that happened. As far as in our minds, in our discussions, we probably had, discussed the possibility of moving back to Michigan at some point in time, knowing that, one, we're going to have 2 children now. They only get to see family when, either we go up there, family comes down, and, we don't want that to be the way that they grow up. We want them to have relationships with their family. So I think there was a little bit of that undercurrent, and then, with everything happening with me, I became much more focused on this needs to happen. And I think Tracy, was ready too. I mean, I think she might have been ready before I was, as far as the overall. She said she'll never move back to Florida, and I think that's more or less just because, I mean, it's hot. It's there's traffic. I mean, there's all kinds of different.
There's Florida man.
Yeah, there's Florida man is everywhere. And I mean, so there's just like that city living. I don't think she really enjoyed it that much. Yeah. I didn't have that much issue with it. Yeah, there's traffic, and it was difficult to get around, and there's a lot of people, and it's a big difference, obviously, than what it is up here. But I enjoyed it. I thought there was something special about being someplace where you don't have to worry about snow.
Yeah. Praise God.
Yeah.
Sounds terrible.
That's awesome.
But those are different things that I think made her kind of start leaning towards it too. I think it was just there was we were starting to lean that way. I think for me it was finally a big part of my focus too was when my mom was diagnosed. They didn't give her a long time, but I was really hoping, like I was thinking it might be, they said probably less than a year is really what they gave her. So in my mind, I'm thinking, let's get back to Michigan at least for part of that. That's, I think, where before she passed, I had kind of, that solidified my will to move. And so I think it was just a whole bunch of different factors, and everything just kind of lined up, and it was finally like, all right, it's time.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where our decision came from. So we made that decision. We weren't really a part of, so we had been going to this Methodist church. I think I had mentioned it was, I think it was South Pasadena or something like that. I've taken a lot of hits over the years playing football. So some of the specifics.
How many fingers am I over?
Yeah. Some of the specifics, my memory is not so good. But as far as we weren't really a part of the church. We just kind of attended.
Yeah.
So we didn't really have that kind of holding us there. The Rileys were still a part of our life, but we were a little bit further from them, and we weren't attending the same church. And it was just, that relationship that bond wasn't as strong as it was, when we were all together and saw each other weekly.
So it just made it easier.
And so it did. And so we decided I was going to, move back, and I was actually going to live with my dad for a couple months while I found work. And Tracy was going to finish out the school year. So this was kind of, February, I think, is when we actually sold the house. We were lucky enough with that Tracy's mom came down and she actually lived with us with Natalie because we were both still working. And so she kind of did, was the nanny, I guess you could say. Yeah. So
every grandma's dream.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was a blessing to have her help us through that time. And so she was actually, I moved back, and Colleen was still staying with Tracy through that time. So that made it a little bit easier so that I could do what I needed to do. And she finished out the school year. She ended up getting a job offer at Manton when we were moving, the final move after that year. She interviewed and got a teaching job at Manton. I had found work at Max's. My father-in-law had worked there for, 40 years or more. And
I've got Max's appliances in my house.
That's right.
Shout out to Max's.
Me too.
For all your appliance needs, downtown Traverse City. Moving on.
It worked out. I mean, the timing was perfect because they were looking for somebody in sales, and they liked to, hire with people that they knew or connections that they knew. And I interviewed for it, and, they offered it to me pretty quickly there. So that went well. It just fit right. And so that gave us that solid base for the family to move up. And I had, something solid that we could lean on, income-wise, obviously. So
you chose to live in Kingsley, I'm assuming because it was equidistance between the two.
It worked out very well.
Yeah. And was church party life when you moved back? Or was it just, hey, we're getting settled in, we're a little busy? I don't know how that...
Well, the interesting thing is, it was, because, Tracy had gone on, I think she went on Facebook and was like, hey, just move back, where should we look at going to church? And, somebody, I know somebody had said, oh, you should check out the Tabernacle in Buckley, and so that at that time, so we started coming here. I remember services were still in T1.
Oh, my.
Yeah. So
that was
T2,
a change.
T2 hadn't been built. Yeah. Big
that
difference.
Was a change.
Difference. But there was a lot of energy. There's a lot of energy that we felt. With this place. You obviously were speaking or doing sermons, and as the lead pastor, and we just felt that. I mean, you spoke to us in many ways. Sermons, oftentimes they speak to you, and we did get that feeling a lot that you were talking to us. And you do such a great job with all of your sermons. You're very entertaining as well.
Not the goal. Don't look at me like that. It's because I'm a nerd.
But anyways,
like
and we came, but by no means were we super consistent. I mean, that was we came. We might come for 3 weeks in a row and then not come for a month. You know,
which that is interesting because right around this time, I remember, like the first time hearing the name Tom Kaleita, which you'd think in T1 that I would recognize the largest man in the room.
Yeah,
but at that time, I think when you were coming, we were having 4 services.
Yeah, probably.
We had a Saturday and 3 on Sunday. It was insane.
Yeah.
People were sitting on laps because we hadn't got T2 built. Because I remember the first time hearing your name is guys talking about playing basketball with you at Kingsley.
Yeah.
And then the first time, I think I met Tracy first, maybe as part of the praise band. Maybe not. I'm not sure. But,
Yeah, I know, maybe.
But the first interaction I remember was in the lobby of T2 and someone saying, "That's Tom Kaleita." And it was, which I'm sure you get, hometown hero type of thing. Yeah. And, people know, like, they don't know your depth. Yeah. They don't know what you've been through. Right. They don't know the pain. They don't know the story. They don't know your journey with God. Yep. They know football guy, right? Yeah. And I'm sitting there going like, okay, he's big as a house. I want to be on his good side, which might have been one of the first times. But how? Sorry, I don't want to cut off the story. But how long was it until you got the invite to be a part of Fight Club? Yeah. Specifically, it was the First Timothy Fight Club. Yeah. It's a handpicked group of guys, and you were part of that. Like, they're all special to me. If you're listening to this and you're like, I thought you tell us all to me. That was a special group because that was a group that you were there. Bill Stone was a part of it. Right. His brother, who I thought wanted to kill me, Adam Sharp, who I met you in the middle of a traumatic situation. Yeah. The crazy Welshman Ryan Jones was in that Fight Club. Yeah. Tyson was in that Fight Club.
Joe Heiler.
My son and his father, my son-in-law and his father. Yeah. That was just a crazy group.
Tim Moore was in there.
Tim Moore, Coach Moore was there. Yeah. Joe Heiler. That was
his son.
Yes.
And his son too.
That was a crazy group, man. Yeah. It was a hodgepodge.
It was a good time. Yeah. So how I got there was pretty interesting because it was really, Bill and Adam that became my connection. And primarily I'll say that Bill. And it was the first time that I had met Bill, and I didn't actually know that it had happened, was the weekend after Caden had passed. So really? That was the first time I did. And it was at basketball. Like, a bunch of his buddies said, like, no, get your mind off it. Let's go. Let's just relax. Let some steam off and play. And so that was the first time that I had met Bill. And I think it was really good for him because I just remember seeing him and he was trash talking. I think he was able to forget something, forget that.
And just go back to normal?
Yeah, just for, even if it was just for 15 minutes or whatever it was. And I also remember thinking that this guy's kind of an arrogant, prick a little bit.
Adam True?
Yeah, 100%. True. Can verify.
Yeah. But so, he was, he'd like to talk trash and do those, but he was a good ball player. And, we just happened to be going to the same thing. I got invited that year for the first time with some people that I knew that knew us, obviously, all mutually. So, and that's the first time that I met him. And the interesting thing about that is at that time, I think we were in one of those periods of time where we kind of had stopped attending church a little bit. So I think it was like a month or two went by after that. And I remember distinctly Bill walking up to me and like, how come I haven't seen you at church?
Classic.
Yeah. And I didn't have anything to say. I really didn't. I didn't have an excuse. I mean, you can make up all the excuses that you want, but I hate excuses. There's always a way around it, and but it really comes down to our responsibility. Whenever anything happens that goes wrong, we can make all the excuses in the world, but he could have done something different. But he was being
a bro.
Honest and real, and I could tell you at that moment, I was floored. Mm-hmm. And the reason I was floored was because this man had gone through some of the worst trauma that somebody can go through. And he's still a soldier. And that strength that he showed right there spoke to me. Like, because all my life, that's what I was chasing. I was strength. I got to be as strong as I can. I got to lift all the weights. I got to do, be the toughest. I need to be the strongest and whatever. And I remember going home thinking, I don't have that. That's a strength I don't have. And I need that. Like, that's something that I need. I remember distinctly this going through this process in my head of just being like, if I was in that same situation, I wouldn't be worried about this guy that I just met not going to church? You know, I'd felt the anger. You know, I'd felt mad. How come he's not that way? You know, and I'm sure that was there. You know,
oh, it was, yeah. As we found out,
yeah, obviously, yep. I listened to his story too, and obviously have had many conversations with him because I do consider him a really good friend of mine. But I couldn't understand and think of how you could be that, you know, do that. And I knew that it wasn't him per se. That strength came from something else. And like, I was blown away by that, you know? And so I was like, we need to start going to church. you know, that was definitely something where I became much more motivated to get more involved again, you know, to be a part of the church, and more and more conversations with him, you know, throughout the process, obviously getting to know him a little bit more intimately, you know, knowing his background and, you know, the different things. He was not afraid to talk. And I think that he used that, you know, when he worked, and, you know, he wasn't afraid to spread that. But so, you know, I was more than willing. I was curious, and I was like, I need to get some of that, you know, I need to have that again. And so I was inspired.
Wow.
I was really inspired by that. And then I remember being at church, after church, talking to Bill and being like, well, how come you're not ushering?
Uncle Bill, love him and hate him.
And I'd be like, I could usher, you know, I could do that.
Just get you off my back.
But no, I was really, I think at that time I was really ready to go, you know, again.
But like, him challenging.
Oh yeah,
like the challenge. Which
absolutely.
The interesting thing is, and I don't want to speak for Bill, but we've had him on this podcast. It was a great and difficult life change story.
Yeah.
But he was in hell, living hell during that time.
Oh, I believe it.
And I think that choosing, like he had a choice,
and
he had to make that choice daily. Adam, you can speak to the. Well, we were all there with him through so many late nights and stuff. But he was choosing to be a soldier and to look outward, and that's what you were attracted to.
Yeah.
And it came across in a Bill way, because there's some people, if they were to challenge that way, it wouldn't work. But for you, it worked.
Oh, yeah.
You're an athlete. And in that moment, he was like one of those squirrely little coaches, like telling you, hey, why aren't you doing this? Yeah. And it was the call out, and you answered the bell. Essentially.
Yeah, I think I recognized it. You know, I'm not afraid to take criticism. Obviously coaching, you know, you have, you know, being a player for as long as I did, you have to have thick skin and look inwardly when somebody is coaching you and see what it is that I could be doing better. And at that time it was the same type of reaction. It was like, there's no reason for us not to be attending church. And then when he challenged me again, there's no reason for me not to be finding a way to serve. You know, and it goes back to, you know, we served and we were a part of that in Florida, but hadn't really, like, I don't know if I was over everything yet. You know, maybe I was, but more so, but ready to really dive in and you know, be a part of it and serve again was probably not on my radar. It was easy to come to church every now and again, just to be a fly on the wall, so to speak. You know, that's easy, you know, and to call yourself a Christian. Oh yeah, I attend church there, you know. But are you really a part of it, you know?
And would you say that's a time that you really made the jump to be all in?
Yeah.
It was not only, okay, Tracy, we need to be in church.
Yeah.
And then you're getting called out. Now you're going to serve. And then tell me about, like, okay, now you come down the stairs into the dungeon. Right out here into the war room, right outside this door, and you're a part of this fight club. Yeah. Was that a frightening thing, or was that the first time you'd ever been in that type of an in-depth Bible study, or?
Yeah, it was. And it was either, I can't remember if it was Bill or Adam, it was one of you two that were the ones that invited me. You were said like, yeah, there's Fight Club. I think I had actually attended a couple.
The open one,
the open ones.
Yeah.
I kind of liked it, but but it was, I don't know, it wasn't as intimate of a connection, I think, and it was another one of those things where like I'd fallen off a little bit, but but being asked, I said like, yeah, I'll go, I'll be there. I think I was ready. I think my my soul was telling me like it's time to have a to be all in and to and not knowing what this is going to look like, but I need to know more, and I was inspired to know more and to and let that relationship grow. Stop building up the walls, and it's time to let yourself be a part of it again.
Because that's about, regretfully, any one of us on staff, we can't be everywhere at all times.
Yeah.
And like for me, there's always people that feel like outsiders. But that's about as inside as you can feel when you're in an intimate group of 12, maybe 13 guys. We're sitting around a table. It's 2 hours. It's every week, or for most guys, it's every week. Some guys can't come every single week. But I remember that group, and maybe it was because of the trauma. I mean, it's amazing how God uses horrible, evil things, his purposes and his good, and we don't see it till years later. But, I mean, at least for me, the recent trauma that Bill and you had gone through with the loss of Bill's son, Caden, to suicide, there was other trauma at that table. But Bill was bleeding every week. Just about every week. And he had a ready crew of guys. We prayed together. There were tears. There was anger. I remember the night that you talked about, and we talked about this with your Change Life story, about being angry and not knowing why. You felt the same helplessness that you had felt. And I imagine that we're all connecting. Trauma's trauma. It isn't comparing one to the other, the loss of the mom or the loss of a child or disappointment with life. Jones's trauma that I'm not at liberty to speak of was coming out massively. And we were all, Scott Welling was in that group, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Scott Welling. And so what did God start doing in your life around the Fight Club? I know it's all connected. It's your own journey, you and Tracy's journey together, church, you're serving, you're part of the family. But what I'm most familiar with is the things we shared at that table, which I know what happens at Fight Club stays at Fight Club unless you're sharing your own thing.
Yeah,
right. And so what was happening for you there?
Yeah, well, I think I really felt a bond, obviously, with everybody else, and I think that it was a community there that you don't get. One of the things that I loved about playing sports was being a part of the locker room. You know what I mean? There's that feeling of just being in there with the dudes, with your brothers, joking around.
Win or lose.
Just there's a brotherhood there that you get from going to it's not real battle, but what you would consider battle together. You'd fight, you'd bleed, you sweat, all of those things you're doing together, obviously towards one goal. And that was one of the hardest things to walk away from. When I finally decided to hang up the cleats, is like not having that anymore.
That's right.
And I think I felt that for the first time since I had left football in that room in the dungeon. It was definitely a situation where there's all these other brothers that are willing to share and willing to be vulnerable, and it's okay. It's okay to share that burden with others. It's not on you. Like, you don't have to share this, carry this by yourself. There's others, and then the accountability factor, was there too. As far as like, reaching out to somebody if you didn't see him at Fight Club and just being like, "What's up, dude?"
I saw you at basketball, but you're not like, and you're like, dang it.
Yeah. So there was accountability there, and it was an awesome experience to have that, and the carryover, even though I may not, call one of the brothers. Mm-hmm. I might not see him for months, just because of passing, going to different services or whatever. But every time I might see, let's say, Tyson.
Yeah.
It's a big, big shake and a hug. And it's just knowing that I got you, bro.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We went to some deep places together.
Yeah.
And it's not like I think some guys, the reason they avoid those relationships is because, this is just a theory, you could shoot it down, that all of a sudden I got to have 12 best friends living in my house.
Yeah.
What I found with those groups is we had that connection. And even though time, different services, you may move to a different group. Yeah. You may move into a different season where you have to take a break or what have you.
Yeah.
But you always have that.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's the same way with guys you played with. I mean, there's guys I played with, whether it was in the USL or in college. I see them now. We shared a locker room. We have that bond.
Yeah.
And that becomes the glue, not just in being a regular faithful participant in church, but a follower of Jesus. It's because, man, I was there. I saw your tears. Remember when we went to that deep place about some of the hard questions?
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest. I think it's fear more than anything. It's fear of allowing yourself to be vulnerable. I'm a man. Like, I'm not supposed to have any chinks in my armor. I'm not supposed to feel emotion.
Oh, there were chinks in that basement. There were chinks.
No, but it's the willingness to be vulnerable, right? And so I think that was inspiring in itself. Was that we build up this. We put on this mask all the time that we're going to be the toughest dude out there, and I'm not going to cry. I'm a man. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to feel pain. This doesn't hurt. I'm going to just walk it off,
Right. It's broke. Walk it off.
It's broke. I'll just walk it off. I'm good. I'm fine.
On it.
Yeah. Yeah. Where's the tussin? I just need to run some tussin on it. But I think that we build this up, this image of ourselves, and in our own heads and our own minds too, of what we are. And the reality is we're not as tough as we think we are. We're not as strong as we think we are. But we don't have to be. We don't have to be that rock all the time. We can be soft. I hate to say it. I don't want to be considered soft. Tell you that.
No, let's be clear.
But let's be clear. But we can be that. We can be the teddy bear.
Yeah.
We can be that.
Or just share that something hurts. Hey, look, this isn't working in my marriage.
Yeah.
Am I doing this wrong?
Right.
And then like I can remember, I mean, I don't want to give all the Fight Club secrets away, but, challenging guys, because we try to do the challenges. And some of those things that even Bill was doing with you and that Adam was doing with you, those were part of the challenges. Talk to someone about your faith.
Sure.
Talk to someone about church. Be a guy that's willing to do whatever. One of them was to pray with your wife for the first time.
Okay.
And we've covered.
Here we go.
Yeah, no. Hey, you have to go back and listen to Adam Sharp's amazing reaction to praying with your wife for the first time. But I remember you as a guy that was very honest, whether you did the challenge or not, and you were very articulate about how it was expressing itself in your life, because we were trying to study God's Word, specifically 1 Timothy together, and just apply it as men. And I remember you, even if you didn't feel like it, as being fully engaged. You weren't the most talkative guy around the table. You didn't need to be. But when you spoke, or we'd have a challenge, that you would step to it. And as we shared those experiences, I was blessed hearing the different responses to no matter what it was. And then some of them were more outrageous or involved, some of Bill's stories being in the UP with random person showing him his personal private chapel in the back of his house where he was there to talk about his basements, to just, this happened at practice today.
Right.
Or I talked to this coach. And so whether or not you saw it in yourself, I saw you going very deep, very intimate with God very fast.
Yeah.
And it was something that you stepped up to as a man. And that was the strength.
and there was a ton of growth there. It was a growth and understanding of what does all this mean? What does it mean to me? I mean, obviously we talk about that. Yeah. And there was a lot of things that were very challenging, but if you really engaged in it, you were going to grow from it. And I remember one of the challenges you gave me personally was you gave me a book to read. And it was what was the book? The name of the book?
You're killing me.
No. It's Tim Burgess knows the book.
Was it The Barbarian
Oh
Way?
yeah, it was The Barbarian. That's what it was. That was the name of it.
That's why the rhino's right down there in the end.
The rhino, man.
Yeah.
I can tell you, like, reading that book and like Tim Burgess's reaction was exactly my reaction to it. I wanted to throw the book against the wall numerous times. I got so angry at it. I was mad at it, and then because I was convicted. It was a conviction in that the words that I was reading were definitely convicting me to be more of the barbarian, right? Yeah. And I didn't know what that meant. Yeah. I remember talking to you about that at one point in time and being like, I don't know what to do with this. Yeah. Like, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to quit my job and go live in the woods? And, well, what am I supposed to do?
Well, I think if I remember correct, it's like chapter 1 or 2 was the one that really captured my imagination. It wasn't even the one about the rhino, but it was. Yeah. Do you remember the part where he talks about fighting for the heart of your king and reminding us that we are in a war? We're in the only war that matters. Yeah, and it may not be about bombs and bullets, but it's a bloody war, and it's an attrition. And some of it, what I saw in you is this obviously physical strength. But there was an inner strength that was even greater. And I'm thinking about impact because just the same way, Bill's half your size, but, and he wouldn't admit that, but he's only half Tom's size. He was, in his worst moments, choosing to fight for the heart of his king. I'm watching the same thing happen in all those guys' lives at different times and places, different expressions. And there was something in you, I don't want to get tears myself, but it was like, man, if this guy gets on fire for fighting for the heart of his king, starting with himself, then with his wife and with his children, then in his community, at his job, with his circle of influence, that's going to be a powerful impact for the kingdom of God, whether it's our church or whatever church God takes you to. And God had used it in my life. And here's for the Tab audience, Erwin McManus wrote this book. I have not connected with another one of his books. I gave up trying. But God used that book for me. And so that's why it was just like, hey, give this. So it's funny that you had to throw it up against the wall moment, which is a great moment to have. Yeah. But I saw you start to take those steps, and you're still taking those steps because
still trying.
I mean, it's never a perfect journey, but what I've seen in you is something changed. Yeah. Because you went from the 1 week on, oh, I'm going to try to invite that guy next week. Oh, I haven't seen him in a month. Yeah. To all of a sudden, one of the most consistent families within our church. Not just in the serving aspect, but the change in your life. Did Tracy, like during this time where you're growing real fast, what's happening in your marriage? What's happening in your relationship? Or was she always strong, or did it have any type of an impact at home?
I think it did, but it's hard for me to really speak for Tracy as far as like what was going on in her mind. I really, at that point in time, I felt the need to be a leader in the family much more than I had ever been. Wow. And that's, I think, something that we talked about was, being, a leader and what does that mean to be a leader in your family and, do that. So I really picked up, that and was trying to be that much more than I was before. And, being a little bit more like, okay, we need to really be intentional about going to church. We need to be much more consistent than we ever were. We need to do these things. We're praying with the kids and trying to instill that with them. and and doing those things, and because I want my kids to have a relationship with God. I want them to have that strength, that they can overcome, and to not have to feel that burden themselves, and be able to rely and to draw from God in times because life is going to be hard. We're all going to stumble. We're all going to fall. Bad things are going to happen, and that's life. And just how do I overcome that? I can make this a lot easier on myself. You can make this a lot easier on yourself by drawing. And it's not always going to be pretty. There's times where you're going to be mad. But how do you handle that? And so I definitely decided that I was going to make a hard attempt to that. Going back to that book a little bit, I remember feeling like I was in crisis because I didn't know what to do. And I remember there's a story I think I told at Fight Club about it was, what does it mean? What is this book trying to tell me? What is God telling me right now? What am I supposed to do with this? I don't know. And I remember at the time I was working out, 5-6 days a week. First thing in the morning, I'd get up. I had a gym set up in the basement, and I had weights, and I had all this different stuff. I remember.
I've been in this gym.
Yeah.
I want this gym in my house.
It's much nicer now than it was then.
Yeah.
But as far as that goes, I was. I remember being at that point in time, when you're working out, you kind of go through these periods of stagnation of just like, okay, like I'm not growing, I'm not getting better, I'm not getting stronger, I'm not, it's a struggle. And I remember one morning I had put on some Christian music in my headphones, I started my workout, and I was warming up on the bike and everything like that, and just this really strong emotion came over me. I mean, it was like, and I just started bawling. I started
working out early in
the morning. I just started bawling, like just tears. I mean, it was like a faucet had just opened up. But I wasn't sad. Like it wasn't because of that. It was because I felt love. Like I felt this is such strong emotion. And I remember like getting down and getting under the bench and starting to do my workout. And the whole time I'm still feeling this, and I'm still crying, and I'm still doing this, but I'm just like, my workout is just inspired. It's just like I'm knocking these sets out like it's nothing, like so much stronger, so many more reps than I had been doing before. Then I take a break and get back on the bike, and this is the routine that I had through this, was just to do two things at once, superset a little bit, but a little bit of cardio in between, and that was kind of my process. But the whole time, just this emotion, my eyes, and I knew what it was. I knew exactly what it was, and again, it was kind of that feeling of peace. And that, like, I'm going through this crisis because I don't know what I'm supposed to do. What does it mean? God, what is it that you want from me? What am I supposed to do right now? And I remember the feeling of, I'm going to ask you to do something. That doesn't mean it's right now. You don't worry about it, but be ready to say yes. I'm going to ask, are you going to do when I come to you and ask you to do something, what's your reaction going to be? And I could just remember, like, yeah, you're speaking to me right now in a way that I understand. I'm knocking out these reps, I'm sets, and I'm like, I remember just it sounds cheesy, but I remember laying down and being like, God, you got me as I'm going through these reps. This is the last set. I don't have a spotter. I added, I don't know, 30 more pounds than I had done in a long time. And I knocked out about 5 more reps than I had been doing on the other sets. And, it was going to be to failure, but there was no failure. It was just go. And it was, just keep on going. And I just, like it was nothing. And it was a way to speak to me.
Yes.
In my, thuggish, in a way that I'm going to understand it. I'm going to see what it is. It's that strength that that you crave. It's that strength that you strive for. God gave it to me and just said, I got you. I'm going to ask you to have my back. And so, like, at that point, I was just like, all right. I didn't feel that crisis that had been, that had filled me up. And I didn't feel that anymore. I knew that I just needed to be ready.
Man, I remember the first time you shared that story with us at Fight Club. And I was more wrecked then than I am now, but I never get tired of that.
Yeah.
Because if I remember right, and Adam, you were there, so we were talking about that tangible sense of God's presence, and it had expressed itself around the table. And not everybody shared, but a couple different guys had shared it. And that one really gripped me because it reminded me again of how personal Christ is. And he's a God that can meet you. Some guys had shared about some really depressing moments in their car. Someone else talked about whatever crisis they were going through. I can't remember if it was in their marriage or with one of their kids or something like that. But you were sharing it, and I just had this image. Jesus knows how to speak to Tom Kaleita. And what you shared was so real. You had even said something like, I can't remember if it was 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning, or however early in the morning it was. And you're lifting these weights, and you said something like, man, if I'm in trouble here, even if Tracy is awake, which she's not, she can't help me, and it sounds kind of crazy, but you talked about feeling helpless and hopeless, but in that time, he's like you were working out with the Lord.
Yeah.
And he and not only is he strengthening you, but he's spotting you. He's saying, I got you.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful picture where every man's got to get to, where you kind of come to the end of yourself and there's a new level of dependence and a willingness.
Yeah.
And it was an all-in moment for you. Like I think, because I've been in a lot of fight clubs, I think you told me that Christian worship music was not a part of the workout program for you. I mean, it's not always a part for me. I don't want people to think I'm listening to the Kumbaya when I'm getting after it.
Yeah.
Not the level of Tom, but I do try to get after it a little bit. Soccer player version, higher reps, lower waves. But I can do pull-ups. That you'd made a decision that day. Hey, I'm going to fill my head with Christian music. Not that you have to every single time, but that day you made a choice, and it wasn't even how great the music was. Although if Matt Hughes is on a solo leading us in something, I can see. But do you think that was a part of it? Was it like a redirecting? I mean, you said you were in a crisis moment as well.
Yeah.
But it's what you were filling yourself with at that time brought you to that place.
Oh, I think it all those factors, kind of focused me to that. I think the music definitely played into it a little bit, and it was, just the praise, right? So, the worship music, really, really kind of brought that to the forefront, and my mind was open, I think, at that time, and it was really profound, just the feeling, the feeling of love, the feeling of peace, in a way that, and I think, it was likened to what had happened before, when I prayed for the first time, when, God spoke to me then, it was that kind of feeling of like, to be at ease, I don't know how to verbalize it very well, but
You're verbalizing perfect. It's perfect.
But it was there, and he was there. I felt the Holy Spirit leading that, and leading me, and just letting me know what this is going to look like.
Yeah.
you don't have to quit your job and go live in the woods and, sustain yourself on honey,
Bugs and honey. That's going to be not a good diet for Tom.
You don't have to do that.
Yeah.
That's not what the God is going to ask. That's not what I'm asking you to do, is essentially what I heard. But I am going to ask you.
Yeah.
This is going to look different for you.
And I love how you articulated that too. It was a very real sense of him saying, I want your yes.
Yeah.
And instead of like I heard, this is why, you even said this, and I know that that's not essentially what you meant. It's not a cheesy story. It's not, because the way God interacts with people, it's going to look different. It's going to, for some people, it might be at an altar. For some people, it's going to be that moment alone in the scriptures. Yeah. For some people, it's going to be in the car. For some people, it's going to be in the weight room.
Yeah.
But there's going to be this crisis moment where he wants your yes. There's so many people that want to, I think I heard Alistair Begg, and probably others have put it this way, is many of us want God, well, he in his own testimony, he shared that he already knew the type of woman he wanted to marry, what he wanted to do for a job, what kind of car he wanted to drive, and where he was going to. He had it all laid out, and it was like he slid it across the table and said, "God, I need you to sign off on this." Mm-hmm. And really, what God wanted him to do, I've found this true in my own life, is God slides the paper back, and it's blank. It's a blank piece of paper, and at the bottom, He says, "I need you to sign your name." And when you sign your name, that's all of a sudden, that's where the peace comes.
Yeah.
I was listening to, in fact, I'll tell you the podcast later. I was listening to a podcast on the Sean Ryan Show of a guy. It's 4 hours, and he shares his testimony. Mm-hmm. And for him, it was his struggle with post-traumatic stress disorder. He was a soldier, and just all this epic battle with drugs and alcohol, and the surgeries and dependence and loss of marriage and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. He described the same thing you did, but it wasn't in a weight room.
Yeah.
And at the end, it was like, I can't explain it. It sounds dumb. But I had this incredible peace. Mm-hmm. And he knew that he knew that he knew at that moment that he was loved, and that he was forgiven, and that he was saved. And the guy's life is totally different, and wants to be a soldier for the Lord no matter what it looks like. So over and over and over, I hear change life stories just like yours, and they're profound, and they need to be told. And that's why I'm so grateful you're telling this story. That was a big moment. That wasn't the end of the story,
sure,
but that was a big part of it. And like I'm saying this bro to bro, don't ever stop telling that story. Yeah. Don't ever stop developing that story, and don't ever be ashamed of that story.
Right.
Because when He shows up in those ways, it's our duty. It's our duty. It's our privilege to share it. I don't know, Adam. Am I on the right track, or have I just become a heretic over here?
No. There was a sermon that you preached probably a couple of years ago, and in that sermon you said, God sees you, He loves you, and He cares about you. And that's something that's stuck with me. And I say it all the time to the students. I say it to our congregation all the time, because I remember that being so impactful to me. I think I talked about it this weekend from stage. But those are the moments for me that are proof that God cares about me. Because when He comes to you and speaks to you in a way that you're going to relate to, that you're by yourself, you're in your weight room, like, He's a personal God. And He's a God that cares about you. And so He met you right where you were at and spoke to you in a way that you were going to understand. Man, like, just that's such a beautiful picture of the God that we serve.
Yeah.
The God that sees us, that cares about us, that loves us. The details.
Yes.
The details matter.
And I think, and I don't want to speak for your story, I believe you're a stronger man now than you've ever been. And I'm not talking about a guy that is a Lions prospect. I'm not talking about a right tackle who made a living by backing up fast and strong. But it's a different kind of strength.
Yeah.
There's an inner strength. It's a strength that only comes from the Holy Spirit. And I think more men need to hear what they're doing right rather than what they're doing wrong. Even in the way you described leading your family. We were in a pastor's meeting today where we were talking about helping people with marriages. And I won't go into all those details, but so many women, sometimes they want their husband's spiritual leadership to look a certain way, or men think it's got to look a certain way. So I've got to get a certain workbook, and okay, family, sit down. We're all going to go through the workbook. My kids would stab themselves in the eyes with a fork. It's like, really, we have to listen to you every week, and now we're doing this too. But it's a redirecting the family's collective attention to what God's doing. Look how God has blessed us in such a way that now my wife can leave full-time teaching and she can pursue her dream, right?
Yeah.
And seeing Dad getting up every day and going to work and providing for his family, and still, hey, we're going to pray before a meal, or the way he's going to love his wife, or the way he's going to lead us to church, or the way, somewhere along the line, I don't remember the sequence there, but you're not only serving church, you serve in your community.
Yeah.
You're involved in coaching at the Kingsley Stag football program, which is our favorite state champion, which is our favorite football program. For sure. No offense to the rest, but Manton Rangers should have tried harder. And Bucktucky doesn't have one.
So football.
No, this is football, and then there's football. But in football, now I see you investing in the lives of all these young men.
Yeah.
Has there been an impact there, would you say?
That has been hard, but I do think so. I coach a certain way, and it's not like Tim is a lot different than I am, Coach Wurr, as well as a lot of the other coaches. But I think I lead in a different way than they do, and I think the kids respond to that. I think it's good to have multiple ways. I think coaching there's no one blueprint for what coaching looks like. But I do hope that I am providing them with a good image, a good example of what it looks like to be a Christian man. Not afraid to talk about it, but at the same time, I'll be honest, not really focusing that on their lives. But
it isn't even the place for it. It's a public school.
Sure.
There's certain things you can and can't do.
Yeah.
But they know.
Yeah.
It's a small town.
Right.
They know where you go to church.
Yeah.
They know what you stand for. They see how you carry yourself.
Yeah. And I think, when it comes to, God is going to ask, God telling me he is going to ask me, and he has numerous times, I think. I think when it comes to after Fight Club as an example, after Fight Club, you encourage us all to go out and kind of start our own Fight Club. I am not by myself equipped. I am not a theologian. I am not well studied when it comes to the Bible, and I do read it regularly, but as far as my understanding of it, it's difficult for me to process and to really get down and get into it and understand. I know there's things that speak to me directly, and I can hear that and feel that, but this is not. I'm not the leader, or I'm not the guy that you would think is going to do that. But I said, yeah. I said, okay, I'm going to trust God to give me what I need to give so that I can help kind of lead a Fight Club. And so I do, with other men from the former Fight Club that we spoke of. There's a few from there, but there's new ones. There's others out, from outside that we've welcomed in. But I kind of, try to the best of my ability to lead the way that I can, and I just trust God that He's gonna put us in the right place.
See, to me, that's a victory, because all He asked for was your yes.
Yep.
He knows what you're best at teaching is an offensive line.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And so He didn't ask you to become a theologian. He just asked for your yes.
Yeah. No, He did. And
my goodness, if we just had more dudes that would just say yes, even in the humility that you just said that, I'm over here celebrating.
Yeah.
Because that is, okay, you asked me to give the yes, because, and sorry if I'm not trying to just give a commercial for Fight Club, but it's for any type of a group or any type of saying yes. All He asked for is the yes. You may not be the lead talker. That's okay. I mean, I've said from the stage before that I've been preaching since I could talk. Yeah. I'm convincing. I've said before, my dad like this is my blessing, this is my curse.
Yeah.
But your presence sitting next to me gives me all the credibility that I don't naturally have with a whole set of people that I don't even know.
Yeah.
Or even just your invitation. Hey, why don't you come? Well, who's there? Well, Tom's there. Oh, okay. Well, if Tom's there, then I can do it. I mean, if that guy's there, then whatever.
Yeah.
That is a part of it. Adam Ray just preached a message about the body of Christ. It's one of the best messages I've heard, at least from the illustrations that he was using about the eye cannot, or the ear cannot say to the eye that, the ear shouldn't envy what the eye has, you know, and he had some goofy illustrations about how the ear just looks weird. But if we were all eyes, you know, and then at least in one of the services he said, imagine if we were all eyes just rolling in here and nobody laughed except like two of us. And he was like, oh, two people got it, right? It's a stupid illustration, but it's also a beautiful, and he used the illustration of a football team, different roles, different responsibilities. And I think if you heard that message, he was even speaking to linemen. Oh, yeah. Because they always want to interview the Joe Heilers, sure, you know, the pretty boy quarterback, you know, and it's like, if it wasn't for Tom, he'd be flat on his butt, you know? Yeah. So to me, that's a victory. Yeah, we know. We know. No, that's good, but man. That's a victory.
It's those types of things. And I think that, you know, as there's opportunities that we're given. There's situations that we're given. It's, you know, and it's FCA. You know, I've definitely had a strong presence in that. Been going to, you know, the middle school FCA in Kingsley. During the football season, I don't, but as soon as that's over, I start attending and help lead those young boys.
That's massive.
And to be a part of their life. And I've definitely felt blessed by that. And then, you know, Jen Yost asked me to coach at FCA camp. And I'm like, whoa, you know, that is so far out of my...
Was that your first one this year? Or was it last year was your first one?
It was, when you were there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the first one.
Yeah.
So
you were crushing it, by the way.
Thanks. But it's a whole different thing. I'm so outside of my comfort zone when it comes to that. Yeah, I like to coach, and that's an opportunity to do that. But then, you know, to share your testimony to young men, to you know, be a leader and talk about that, and you know, just kind of pour into them in a way. I went and I said, I mean, the whole time I did that, I was thinking, yeah, I'm going to do this. You know, I prayed about it, and, you know, I definitely hear God say, like, this is one of those times where I was, you know, remember when you said, you know?
Yeah. He always plays that card. Yeah. He's got that signed piece of paper in his file.
So I said, yeah, okay, I'll do it. And I'm thinking that this is going to be good for them. Man, I didn't know the impact that it was going to have on me. Wow. You know, I can't tell you how much of an impact. Man, it's such a blessing to be able to go to that and to feel that and to see, you know, the Holy Spirit at work. Holy cow! You know, just, you know, the praise time. You know, all of the whole thing is just, it's an amazing. I've gone twice now, and can't express enough at how awesome, you know, that has been, you know, and again, thinking that I'm serving, you know, this is why I'm going to do this. I'm serving God so that these kids, you know, will have, you know, they'll get something out of that, not knowing how God is going to work in my life through this process. Right. And it's just, I mean, huge, you know, I can't tell you how many times I find myself in tears, you know, just seeing all the youth, you know, run up to the stage and just glorify God during the praise sessions, and obviously the sermons, you know, just so powerful, and the whole thing is just an amazing thing. And again, it's just seeing God's work in real time. Yeah, you know, working these kids, and then working in me. Yeah. You know, because we're serving our Creator, we're serving God. But God is going to bless you for that. Yeah. You know, there's blessings there for you too, you know, through that. And it's amazing. It really is.
Yeah. That camp was the camps that I think I got to go 2 years in a row, and it was pretty awesome. And I remember, I didn't mean to pressure you, but I think I was one of the voices like, bro, you got to go down there.
Yeah, you may
because
have been,
there was some good, there was a couple really good coaches, but having watched Kingsley sessions before, I just like coaching. I don't care what sport it is. I've dropped in on an excellent high school volleyball coach and watched her run a session. And she never played at a high level. She was a great teacher and a great coach. And so I just like watching great coaches. And so I had a feeling in my gut that it would be fun to add you to that mix. And so I was like, hey, Jen, we got to get Tom Kaleita. She goes, I'm already on it. She's got a wonderful plan for everyone's life, you know. I mean, if you're good at checkers, she's going to add checkers to the program for 2025. But
that's right.
And then, of course, I always get a kick out of when I've met somebody and then I got somebody that I want you to meet. Like, I love bringing worlds together. And the first time I remember doing it with Tom Kaleita is when some idiot we hired from Oklahoma. What was his name?
I forgot.
Oh, you forgot.
Yeah.
What was it? Was it Matt? What was his?
It's a weird country or something.
Cotton, Bish. Oh, Britton Bishop. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So he had, he'd played right tackle. And I remember the first time introducing Britton to Tom in someplace. I don't know if I think it was at a fight club.
Yeah, it was after Fight
Club.
Well, it was a Fight Club.
Because he was interviewing.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh, you got to meet this guy.
Yeah.
And so so you guys met, and I'm like, hey, Britton, this is Tom. You guys are do football things, kind of talk to each other. And you guys are both in a different stratosphere than I am because you're giants. And I'm looking up and, hey, Spike, how's Spike? Hey, Spike, meet Spike, you know. And all of a sudden, they did a secret handshake. And for a hot second.
The locker room handshake.
Yeah, it's some kind of, Britton told me that, all the guys that played college football, they have this little secret handshake. But you did it like you were brothers. But what was cool is it was more than just football, because I saw the Christ in you and the Christ in him. There was an immediate big brother, little brother, because he'll never admit it. But at the beginning, he was like, oh, that man's a beast. He was like, dude, that guy's a beast. Yeah, because he was like, and I was just excited because somebody was bigger than Britton. Yeah. But I know that was a special friendship and a special bond. And isn't it annoying that he's so young and that we all found ourselves kind of I mean, Adam didn't learn a thing.
No,
Britton learned everything he knows from Adam.
For sure.
But then Britton passed it on to us. That was a little bit annoying.
Yeah. Well, I'd never looked at him like, and maybe it's my thought process of myself. Obviously, as we get older, we think we're younger than we are.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah.
I never looked at myself as older than him. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it spoke to his maturity and obviously his, what he was about. And I got a lot from him. Miss you, brother.
Yeah, 100%.
He speaks for himself, Britton.
There's a feud going on between Adam and Britton. But I also remember that you had an impact on him because he young, impressionable, all alone. He moved here, pandemic, immediately closed us down. And you and Tracy welcomed him as part of the church family. You did for him in a lot of ways what the Rileys first did for you within our church. And it was funny because Britton, I was like, hey, where were you all day? And he was like, yeah, I got some great food over. Tracy made some great food. And he was describing all of this stuff. And I was like, cool. And he was like, I had to move rocks all day first because you're building a retaining wall. But it was like, that's the perfect, hey, Britton, I need your help. Yeah. You notice he didn't call you and me to move those rocks?
No, he knew better.
He knew better.
Well, I just figured that you guys would know better.
But he moved a bunch of rocks, and it was more than just that. But we actually, I think our next podcast is actually Britton, which we've already recorded, and he talked about how much he missed us, not Adam, but he mentioned you by name, including his whole church family. But you got any other questions for Tom? Anything that we missed? Or Matt? Matt, you got anything you want to ask? He does not. I thought you wanted to ask him if he likes sushi.
I'd love me some sushi, man.
Do you really?
Oh, yeah.
See, we might have to set that up as just a thank you for doing the two-parter. Matt's dream is to go to the Chinese buffet and get kicked out. Not for fighting, not for being crass, just for you've eaten enough. Now you need to leave.
I'm not there, but I've been chased out of one.
Oh, really? Because you just weren't done yet?
Yeah. You go now.
That just happened. Just happened. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, I was told I needed to leave. It was,
that's nice.
But to be fair, it wasn't just myself. It was also like 4 or 5 others like me.
Okay.
It was the whole offensive line that went.
Oh, wow.
And so, it wasn't just me. It was just kind of like
team effort.
it was it was a wrecking ball that came through and was just going to destroy that buffet. But
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, Tom, we love you, man. And thank you for being a part of the love that makes up our community. And I think that you're a man that we hold up as someone to look up to. And I'm not talking about physical, because you dared to go there. You dared to allow yourself to be vulnerable. And you came out on the other side stronger because you opened yourself up not only to the love of God, the love of Christ, but to the community, to the brotherhood. And you make us better, man. You make our church better. You've made me better. You've challenged me. And I want to encourage you, and I want to encourage our listeners that this is just another story. Yeah, it's a cool story. Tom's another brick in the wall. I'm another brick in the wall.
Yeah.
Matt, Adam, we're just other brick. And we all have our own story, and your story matters. But not if you hide from God, not if you hide from community. I'm going to mess up the formula, but one of our pastors, I think it was Adam, was talking about the importance of community. He said, time plus vulnerability equals life change. And he was talking about time and vulnerability centered around God's word and in God's community. It's not just you alone with a counselor, although I'm not diminishing counseling, but time plus vulnerability equals life change. And when he shared that, I knew it was true, but he shared it in a, like I'd never put it in that formula before. And all of a sudden, images of men and women who have dared to go there have really experienced the full. I know that's true in your life. I've never met someone with as many walls as you. And I include Bill in that, because Bill's wall just got, there was a wrecking ball that went through his wall. But dude, your defenses, Adam Sharp, were strong. I mean, you were a fortress. Was that true in your life?
Yeah, 100%. And I can find myself with those walls building back up at times. And it takes the community that was built in Fight Club with you guys and the others that we've mentioned, that even to this day will help bring those walls back down when they start to build up.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
yes.
It's an ongoing process. So,
and it's a two-way street.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone to think ever that I'm over here thinking I've got it together. Out of our entire staff, you're one of maybe 3 people that are continually checking on me. And it's not out of fear. And it's not a boss, next gen pastor talking to a lead. I mean, it's, hey, are you good? I need to make sure you're good. And then it's like, I can't lie because we've already been to those places. Yeah. So it is a two-way street. It's for all of us. I need it. You need it. Tom Kaleita's got it. So, I'm not saying you're the finished article. No. None of us are. But you've already gone
so
there.
Far.
Is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
No, I know, and it's a constant battle, and it's a constant I mean, it sounds great, but yeah, I mean, we're all building up those walls. It's in our nature to do so, and but we got to check ourselves, and then we need others to check us, and I will do a shameless plug for Fight Club, because I think that's a huge part in as men, finding people that you can trust that will check you, and I think it's incredibly important, and being able to be vulnerable. I think that's the hardest thing that I know I've had, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'm sure almost every man out there, being able to be vulnerable with another man. Holy cow! I've got an image that I have to uphold, and so just find it, and find people that you can trust, and then that will trust you, and build those relationships and center it around God. because that's love. That's love right there. It's okay to love, other men, and to be there for them, and to know that they're going to be there for you if you need it. And it's there. It's real. And incredibly important.
That's a good last word.
It is.
That's a good last word. Shameless plug for tracecakes.com.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to recommend, even if all you do is get the chocolate peanut butter cookie. It is 1
so good.
ounce, 3 ounce. What is it? Is it 1, 3, or 5? It's heavy. That's all you need to know.
It's delicious.
There's a peanut butter cup baked inside there. Mine is reserved upstairs. Matt, I believe this is yours. No, this is the bigger one. This is yours. Matt, you got anything last words for us? We good? All hearts are clear. Tom, I can't thank you enough for being with us. I think this story is going to help a lot of people.
Yeah.
If you've been blessed by this, or even if you haven't, share it with someone that it'll be a blessing for. On the socials, send it direct message via your texting thing. If you don't know how, ask someone Britton Bishop's age how to copy and paste and send it. And would you? I'll remember to say thank you to Tracy, but thank her for us. She's gone over and above, and I'd like to be invited to that class if I can.
I'm not going. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm hoping to be invited to another national championship or Super Bowl party in Tom Kaleita's basement. That was the best one I've been to. That was the best one. My granddaughter did not get kicked out. She was 2.5, and football was going on, and it was Michigan, and we all cheered because something big happened. And then she asked, "What's going on?" She was playing with like not foosball. What was it? Little games you got down there. And she saw that it was football, and she just instinctively, because she's a Christian, she just said, "Go Irish."
Oh, geez.
And the Irish weren't even in the program.
It was a championship game. We know that.
Story.
Yeah, exactly. and Tom didn't kick us out. He was like, because she was cute, she can stay. That was about it. But thank you so much.
Yeah.
And
Thanks, brother.
Podcast family, thank you so much. Adam, thanks for taking time. Matt as well. Until next time, Tab family, this is Adam Sharp, Tom Kaleita, executive producer Lord Matthew Corey Hughes, and John Vermiglia signing off.